Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran, and today we're going to be taking a look at motion detected from the backrooms. This is more found footage that's hopefully going to give us some insight into what happened to that missing and lost researcher. Let's get into it. You know, sometimes people don't appreciate just how long ago the 1990 was, right? It was 32 years ago. I was only 3 years old at that point, and the technology was just, there was so much less of it. And we think now in the era of the internet and email that in 1990, if you wanted to communicate with someone who wasn't in earshot, your options were mail, a telephone, or a fax machine. That was it. And if you walked out of your office building, you were just out. There was no way for anyone to reach you. So it's pretty incredible when we think about the difficulty of conducting research, especially highly involved, highly technical research from this era. It's in many ways pretty impressive, especially at the level of collaboration we saw. And you have to think, it's even more impressive when you think about things like the Manhattan Project, right? Which was 50 years before this, in which they built a nuclear weapon, something many countries still don't have the technical capabilities to do. And the US did it with blackboards and paper. So you can see they're building out what's going to be the secure room inside the back rooms. This is what the lost researcher ended up finding. It's actually got some nice details. See here, this is a portable generator, which is interesting because it's considered a really bad idea to run a portable generator indoors. Portable generators actually are extremely dangerous, and every time there is a major power outage or disaster, let's see if we can back it up and just get a better perspective. Yeah, it's a generator. I'm almost certain it is. But the problem is that every year when there's a major disaster and power outage, people bring out their generators and either they run them indoors or they run them right next to their home. The danger is that the carbon monoxide a generator produces is considerable, even more than your car that has a number of safeguards now to prevent the carbon dioxide from building up in an area, in a location. And when you run this generator for any length of time, some people do die because the carbon dioxide enters their home and suffocates them. It's not good. We'll leave it at that. But so it's recommended, not recommended, it is urgent that one never run a generator inside and run it a safe distance from your home. So I wonder if there's some sort of mechanic, some sort of vent or something that's allowing this generator to run, or if there's just, if it's there as some sort of emergency backup. Oh, maybe it's not a generator at all. Maybe it's like a secure box of some kind. Optimally positioned along lateral division A. Each camera has been modified. Recording when motion and substantial noise is detected. Now, it's funny, again, just a testament to technology. In the 90s, this would have been cutting-edge technology, extremely bulky, using an infrared sensor to detect motion. There was actually motion detectors as early as the Vietnam War, though they didn't use infrared. They would bury basically sensitive seismic equipment was the technology, and they would use it to try to detect the footsteps. And an individual wouldn't really detect, but if you had a 500-person company or 1,000-person battalion drive or walk through an area of forest, the sensors, the ground sensors, may detect them. And while the technology wasn't great, it did allow the US to get some level of situational awareness of North Vietnamese forces moving through the jungle. But the infrared use of commercially available infrared motion detectors is somewhat newer. Nowadays, of course, it's in garage doors, it's in hunting cameras that you can buy for just a few dozen bucks on Amazon. But again, 30 years ago, this would have been bleeding edge technology. So yeah, it's funny. While this is a camcorder for sure, there would be a large infrared projector somewhere. One of the biggest technological changes of the last 30 years has been miniaturization, the ability to take technology and compress its size down, right? This was within 20 years, this video camera could be reduced to the size of a button or a tic tac, which is really one of the biggest revelations. It's not like we've invented new camera technology, but we've taken what used to be massive technological machines and shrunk them down, just along with computers, right? We've obviously seen, our cell phones are as powerful as the computer that took us to the moon, but we've seen a corresponding shrink down of so much other technology. Like we talked about, infrared sensors, great example. Video and audio recording. Even now, this high-end mic, right? There are lav mics that perform as well as television studio mics from the 90s. During the night. One of the things that's interesting, if you've never seen it or heard of it, is human beings when there's been a number of experiments in which they are locked in a room with no external orientation to time. So no clocks, no windows to look outside, nothing. And the human beings just sort of fall into their normal sleep cycle. And what's fascinating is that human beings generally have sleep cycles that are slightly longer than a day. So instead of 24 hours, right, every 24 hours you wake up, you do stuff, then you get tired and you fall asleep, and then you wake up and do it again. Well, that cycle, right, it actually ends up being I think 26 hours. It's just a little bit too long. It's actually 10% too long, or around there. And that's sort of fascinating because despite literally the Earth being a 24-hour day for millions and millions of years, even simple bacteria follow a sort of day and night cycle. The idea that we've evolved so much, and yet we don't have a correct internal circadian rhythm. I think there's probably a reason for it. I actually think there's an evolutionary advantage to human beings having different circadian rhythms, and that basically, if you were like a primitive tribe, right, you would be really vulnerable if every person in your tribe fell asleep at the exact same time. So you would naturally want to have some night owls who are awake all night and sleep during the day. You'd want to naturally have some people who wake up early and do things. You would naturally want to have a certain percentage of people who wake up around noon and operate best at dusk. All of those things would allow you to not only protect yourself continuously, but have access to different plant life, flora and fauna that emerges at different times of day. All that to say, if you were trapped in the back rooms, concepts like day and night might not really mean anything to you biologically. And it may be really tough to track the time. Wait, was that the right number of... Okay, let's see. Okay, so they left it like 7:30. Oh, that's supervisor. Okay, I want to get a count. I feel like the count may have been off there. Let's see. Let's take... Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so this is more motion detected. 3 researchers pass a central ID. 1, 2... 1, 2, 3. Now we're into the next one. Returning researchers past Central Division D. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's I think 3 there. Supervisor passes camera 6. Okay, which is interesting because I think this is supposed to look routine, but he's obviously separated from his group. Noise detected. Threshold barrier closed. I think they mean frost. Oh, that's pretty spooky. So it tells us that there's some sort of time distortion happening in the back rooms. And the reason is because, look, this isn't really under construction. This shouldn't be making noise yet. It's still probably weeks or months away from making noise and having that trigger event occur. There's no electricity. There's nothing here. So the idea that the researcher is now also in the future in this same location. It says that time is messed up, but space remains fixed. Now, you and I know that space, there's no universal location, right? You might say, oh, I'm at, I'm in Manhattan, downtown Manhattan in New York. Well, if you were to stand there for millions of years, right, the very tectonic plates would shift underneath you. Even in the course of a day, right, the Earth is always rotating. So New York itself is rotating along the surface of the Earth. Of course, you also have the Earth rotating around the sun, the galaxy rotating. So the idea that a house, somehow there's some supernatural universal force that keeps people pinned in a location, there is none. There is no universal location, right? Somehow you would have to anchor someone to the place spiritually, for lack of a better term. But there's no supernatural Cthulhu universal location. Interesting. So now it sounds like there's something else, like construction happening. So yeah, it's almost like the sound is passing through some sort of temporal distortion. All right, very weird. As we've talked about in other videos, it seems like there's some sort of lore where when you're close to one of the creatures, one of the entities of the back rooms, that they distort technology, right? The video file gets pretty grainy. And as we've seen, the microphone appears to be disrupted as well. Oh, that's pretty creepy. Okay, FYI, guys, upscaling and enhancing, that's something that can only be done with AIs. And if you were talking about an entity, just like modern AI, right? If you upscale an image, unless it's an image of something that's pretty obvious what it is, then it's going to be really hard to accurately upscale it. Especially, so if you had a supernatural entity like this thing, you're never going to be able to upscale it because the AI that does the upscaling, right? Because it has to create pixels where there aren't pixels that exist. You're never going to really know what it is. It's going to make its best guess, but it has no idea what that guess could be. Right? There's a classic meme of the picture of Obama highly pixelated. It asks the AI to complete it, and it produces a generic looking white dude's face. And it's clear that, you know, yes, it knows it's a face, but it has no idea that it's the face of an iconic leader. All right, guys, that was pretty spooky. If you guys want me to do some combat video breakdowns that are just too spicy for YouTube, become a member of the Patreon. Thanks, my lieutenant tier patrons. I will see you guys in the next one.